Okay, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. This is the January 2022, um, 2026 Placer County Zoning Administrator and Parcel Review Committee hearing. My name is Crystal Jacobson, and I will be the hearing officer for today's meeting. I want to first start by providing some information about the participation in the hearing process today. The Planning Commission hearing room here is open to in-person attendance. And then please also be advised that today's hearing is being recorded and will be available on the county's website under the Zoning Administrator Parcel Review Committee agenda item on the webpage. In-person public comment will be offered during the meeting on each item. We'll also have an opportunity for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And then when providing public comments, please come to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin your comments. And you'll have 3 minutes to comment. I also wanted to point out we do have a Tahoe convenience location for folks in Tahoe. We had a couple of Tahoe items, so you'll see on the screen over there, we've got folks in the Tahoe office that are participating today. So just to talk about the process a little bit more, first, on every single item that comes up, I will ask staff for their presentation, and then I will ask the applicant, the representative, or owner to come to the podium and provide any additional information they might have on their items that they want me to consider. And then after that, I will open it up for public comment before closing the public hearing and taking action on each item. So before we begin reviewing the items on the agenda, I would like to first open the floor for public comment on matters, any item or matters that are not included on today's agenda. So with that, I'm going to start here in the room. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to provide public comment on any items that are not included on the agenda? If so, come to the podium and state your name for the record. Okay. We have copies of the agenda over here on the table. Yeah, if you want to take a look at that. There's a number, I think we've got 12 items. Items 6 through 12 are on our consent calendar. And then we have items 1 through 5 are not on consent. So why don't I go ahead first and go to the Tahoe convenience location to see if there's anyone in Tahoe that wishes to provide comment on any item anything that is not on today's agenda.
No comment.
Okay, so no comment in Tahoe. And I'm going to go ahead and just make sure here, this gentleman's looking at the agenda, just make sure, do we have anybody in the room that wishes to provide comment on any matter that's not included on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none? No? Okay, yes. Oh, yeah. Come on up to the podium, please, and state your name for the record.
My property involves the entire southern border of Ben Navratsky's pool house.
Right. So that's an item that is on the agenda. So it's itemized on the agenda, and it is going to be taken up at, hold on one second here.
Oh, at 10:20.
It's agendized for 10:20. Yeah.
Okay,
so I
I'm
can't.
sorry.
Yeah, we can't go to that item until 10:20. So again, I opened up public comment for any item that's not on today's agenda. So if you have any item that you or comment that you want to make just in general, this is the opportunity to do that. Okay, so one more time. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to provide comment on any matter not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on then and take up our consent calendar. And we have items 6 through 12 are on the consent agenda, so you can see those on your agenda there. They include some minor boundary line adjustments and conditional or certificate of compliance items, again, 6 through 12. And so at this time, I want to ask, is there anyone that wishes to pull any one of those items off of the consent agenda to be taken up individually? Is there anyone in the room that wishes to pull any item off consent? And anyone in the Tahoe convenience location wishing to pull any items off consent? Okay, and then turn to staff. Any staff? Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to take action to approve the consent calendar as outlined on the agenda. Okay, so again, that concludes the consent items. So items 6 through 12 have been approved with one action. Okay, and I just need a couple minutes here to get ready for the next one. So I'm going to pause for 1 minute here. Let's run out of ink. Okay. I'm now going to take up our 10 o'clock timed item. This is item number 1 on the agenda. This is the Arnett variance PLN 25-00352, and this is a Tahoe item. And my understanding is that this one needs to be continued, but I am going to open it up to, looks like we've got Tahoe staff in the Tahoe convenience location. Ms. Beckman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Heather Beckman, Senior Planner, working out of the Tahoe City office. There was a problem with the legal noticing for the Arnett variance, so we're asking for a continuance until the February hearing. I'm sorry, the March hearing, February hearing.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, this is a public hearing, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up for public comment on just the request for continuance. So with that, is there anyone that wishes to provide any comment on the request for continuance for item number 1, the Arnett variance? Anyone, no one in the room? Anybody in the Tahoe convenience location that wishes to provide comment on the request for continuance?
No one in the Tahoe office.
Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to take action to continue this item to our February 19th Zoning Administrator Parcel Review Committee meeting. And it will be heard at either 10 o'clock or any time thereafter. So it can be agendized for any time after 10 o'clock. So again, the Arnett variance PLN 25-00352 has been continued to February 19th, anytime after 10 a.m. And thank you to staff for that. So that concludes item number 1. And just real quick, we are at 10:09. I'm going to take up item number 2 in just a minute here, which was timed at 10:05. Okay, so moving on to item number 2, this is our 10:05 timed item. This is the Ferrari front setback variance and administrative approval, PLN 25-00344. This is also a item in District 5 in our Tahoe, out of our Tahoe office. Looks like Heather Beckman is going to provide a report on this. So I did want to point out real quick before, Heather, you get started, we did receive one letter that came in actually in support of the variance request. I didn't see any other, but I'll let Heather speak to that. So with that, I'm going to turn to staff for a report on the item.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning. The subject property is located at 1072 Serene Road in the Soda Springs area. It's zoned single-family residential with a combining minimum building site of 6,500 square feet. The property owners are seeking a variance to the front setback to allow for a one-car garage, a covered front entry, and living area addition, as well as they're seeking approval of an administrative approval for an increase to height. The property is 0.2 acres in size and is accessed off of Serene Road. It's bordered to the rear and partially along the eastern side by Serene Lakes. The property is rectangular. It has an irregular rectangular shape, which has a 75-foot wide frontage, but tapering to 28 feet at the rear. The property is further constrained by the 100-year floodplain associated with Serene Lake, as well as a greenbelt that precludes any residential development or improvements. The property was first developed in 1978 with a single-family dwelling, a two-story single-family dwelling. The footprint of the development is located or oriented diagonally across that rectangular shaped property. And it's important to note that the residence doesn't currently have any garage or protected ingress or egress to the property, which is something that's very critical in snow country, particularly at this elevation, which can receive up to 35 feet of snow annually. I did do a review of the permit history. It appears that the footprint of the residence was built as per the 1978 permits. However, it was built in the wrong location, and this often occurred on older developed properties in Tahoe. So the footprint of development today actually encroaches into the front setback and has a setback of 26 feet 9 inches, whereas a 30-foot front setback as measured from the property line is required. The project proposes utilizing the existing foundation, raising that two-story structure, and adding a new ground floor, one-car garage, covered front entry, and additional living area. So the final product would be a three-story residence that's 35 feet, 10 inches tall. Specifically, the owners are seeking a front setback variance of 28.5 feet for the new one-car garage, 19 feet for the covered front entry, and 25.5 feet for the residential addition. And again, whereas 30 feet is as measured from the property line is otherwise required. It should be noted, however, that all of the improvements maintain at least 39.7 feet from the edge of pavement, which exceeds the Department of Public Works requirements for safe practices for snow removal and snow storage. And the DPW requirement is typically 30 feet. Moving on to the height administrative approval, because the project proposes to raise the existing residence and add that new ground floor, the final structure has increased height. So the applicant is also seeking approval of an administrative approval for that 35 feet 10 inches, whereas a maximum of 35 feet is otherwise allowed. So staff has determined that there are special circumstances to the property. The property is constrained. This is due to the relatively small size, that irregular rectangular shape I spoke to, as well as the 100-year floodplain and the green belts that are associated with Serene Lakes. So the result is that the property has 3,288 square feet of area that is outside of the building setbacks, so not a lot of area for which to add new development. A key component to this project is the fact that they're adding that one-car garage and covered front entry, so getting that protected ingress and egress, which is critical, as I mentioned, in snow country. The applicant did explore placing the development to the north of the existing residence, but determined that it would have similar setback encroachments as with the current proposal, as well as it would result in more ground disturbance than by utilizing the existing foundation and structure as they propose. So staff has determined that the proposal is the minimum departure to achieve the project goals. As it relates to the increase in height and the administrative approval request, the increase is 2%, an increase of 2% over what exists today. And furthermore, because they're keeping that very steep 12 and 12 roof pitch of the existing structure, when it's raised, only 10 square feet of visible massing, of massing would be visible. So staff, taken together, has determined that this is a de minimis change that would be largely unnoticeable. I would like to make one correction to the conditions of approval. Condition number 3 speaks to requirements for an encroachment permit. However, it incorrectly addresses the encroachment permit being related to Quail Lane, whereas it should be related to Serene Road, where the property is located. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the variance. This would be based on a Class 3 CEQA exemption for new construction of small structures, as well as a Class 5 exemption for the minor alterations to land. And this would be subject to the findings and the conditions of approval listed in the staff report, with, of course, that one correction to condition number 3. And then, as you mentioned at the top of the hearing, one public comment has been received in support of the project, and I've received no other comments.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn and see, is there anyone, I'm not sure, Ms. Beckman, is there anyone, there we go. Okay, yes. If engineering and surveying want to come to the podium, please. And Tahoe, thank you. State your name for the record, and then do you have anything else to add to the report?
Good morning. Monica Grimenos from Placer County Engineering and Surveying. Engineering and Surveying is in support of the project, subject to the conditions in the staff report. No
Great.
additional comments.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to turn to, we have environmental health here in the room and see if they have anything to add to the report.
Good morning, Ms. Jacobson. Environmental Health has no comments on this project.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, I am now going to turn to the owner, applicant, or representative. If they're in the room, looks like they're in the Tahoe Convenience location. Please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
I'm the applicant, John Henneman, for Tiffany Ferrari.
Great, hi, good morning. I just wanted to see first if you have anything else you want to add that you want me to consider on this item.
No.
Okay, and then also ask if you have received a copy of the conditions of approval and the modification that Heather or Ms. Beckman has described today.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So why don't you go ahead and take a seat, and then I'm going to open, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the hearing and see if there's anyone in the room in Tahoe or Auburn that wishes to provide public comment on this item. Okay, I don't see anybody here in Auburn, and it looks like nobody in Tahoe. Am I right? Yep. Okay.
I just want to support, should I?
If you want.
Okay, great. Come on up to the podium, state your name for the record.
Carrie Hoyt.
Good morning.
I'm here in support of the variance approval.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to provide any comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to first take action to determine that this project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And then I'm going to approve the variance to the front setback for the construction of the residential addition. That approval for the variance is based upon the findings contained in the staff report and also subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report and as amended here today and read into the record by Mrs. Beckman. So the condition number 3 as read into the record today is what the project is subject to. So we do need to make that change. And then I'm also going to approve the administrative approval, which is a relief from standards for a height of 35 feet and 10 inches, whereas 35 feet was otherwise allowed. And that approval is also based upon the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval that are included in the staff report and is amended and read into the record today. So that's condition number 3 is modified. So again, the approval for the variance and the approval for the administrative approval are, again, based upon the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report and as modified here today. And that concludes this item. Real quick, I do want to mention that this item, even though we had folks speak in support, it is subject to an appeal period. And so there is a 10-day appeal period before this decision becomes final. So if anyone disagrees with my decision here today or feels that they have been adversely affected, they can file an appeal of this decision, and my decision will be set aside until such time the appeal can be heard by the Planning Commission. Should an appeal be filed, it will be subject to a filing fee of $774. So that concludes item number 2 on the agenda, and I'm going to be moving on to item number 3. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And in Tahoe. Thanks. Okay, there's some shifting of staff down here, so we are going to move on to item number 3 on today's agenda. This is the 1010 item. It's the NS variance PLN 25-00390. I do want to mention that we've received a lot of written correspondence or public comment that came in ahead of today's hearing, so I'll let staff speak to that. It looks like it's all in support, but staff can correct me if it's something that has come in just recently in opposition, but it looks like everything I've seen so far has come in support of this request. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn to staff for a report on the item.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Staff requests the zoning administrator conduct a public hearing to consider the NS variance and take the following actions. Determine the proposed action is statutorily exempt from environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, Section 15270, and Placer County Code, Section 183610. And furthermore, to deny a variance request to allow an existing unpermitted 174 square foot patio cover to remain 5 inches from the east side property line, where 5 feet is normally required, in accordance with the Placer County Code, Section 176100, subject to the recommended, just that's it. So some background on the project. The subject property is approximately 0.17 acres located at 8232 Sino Avenue in the unincorporated Granite Bay area. The parcel and its surrounding areas are zoned residential single family. The subject parcel and its surrounding areas are all developed with detached single family structures and small residential outbuildings. The parcel was the subject of a code enforcement complaint and subsequent investigation. The property owner was issued a notice of violation on September 22nd, 2025, identifying the patio cover or trellis did not comply with the setbacks and did not have a permit for construction. The property owner was instructed to submit for a building permit by October 23rd, 2025, and a variant application was received November 10th of the same year. The applicant stated to staff during a site visit that the structure had been present for over 2 decades and had not been harmful to the community. Conversations with the applicant and the property owner revealed the trellis had been on site for years prior to the current property owner taking ownership. Review of historic aerial photographs appear to show the trellis constructed in place in its current form since at least 2009. Aerial photographs reviewed prior to this date are less clear, but appear to show a trellis or similar structure in some form at the location dating back to as far as 1993. Photos prior to this date are not legible. The site itself is largely flat with a rear lawn, patio, and small garden. The patio is currently covered by the trellis, which is partially within the side setback. The trellis extends approximately 8 feet tall, just barely taller than the privacy fence that stands on the border of the property. As you mentioned earlier, staff received about 11 comments, all written from members of the public. All of these comments were in support of the variance application. To summarize kind of all of them, the structure has been present on site for upwards of 41 years and has never been an issue until a code enforcement complaint was filed last year. Many of the comments suggest that this code enforcement complaint is retaliatory and related to a neighbor dispute on a separate issue. So in reviewing the materials presented in the variance application, the physical attributes of the project site, staff has determined that the findings required to grant a variance cannot be made and does not support the requested setback variance. In particular, staff concluded that the property lacks special circumstances based on the shape, topography, and surroundings, as the property is uniformly shaped, is consistent with other properties in the immediate vicinity, and the size conforms to the zoning. Therefore, the strict application of the zoning ordinance would not deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other property in the vicinity and under identical zoning classification. Therefore, the granting of this variance would constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and in the same zone district, in that the 5-foot side setback is applicable to all properties in the RS zone parcels in the adjacent area. Finally, this proposal would not be the minimum departure from standard to grant relief. Based on the analysis contained in this report, staff recommends the zoning administrator take the following actions. Determine that the proposed action to deny the project is statutorily exempt from environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, Section 15270, and Placer County Code, Section 183610, and to deny the variance request to allow an existing unpermitted 174 square foot patio cover to remain 5 inches from the east side property line, where 5 feet is normally required, due to the proposed project not meeting the findings described within the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. I don't think I have any questions at this time, so I'm going to turn first to Environmental Health and see if they have anything else to add to the record.
No additional comments for this project.
Great, thank you. And Engineering and Surveying, anything to add to the record on this one?
No additional comments as well.
Okay, great. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask the property owner, applicant, or representative to come up to the podium and state their name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Paul Ennis.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to see first if you have anything you want to add or respond to on the request.
Yes, it was mentioned that this complaint was retaliatory. I have here something that has not been submitted. It's a civil harassment restraining order after the hearing. This is good for 2 years because our neighbor has been harassing us in other ways. So that's the reason for the complaint.
Okay.
I believe that this trellis or overhang benefits both properties in the fact that it supports the fence, the uprights, the vertical 4x4s support the fence from being damaged by wind and rain and whatnot. We have had problems with that fence in the past. It's been replaced twice, to my knowledge, while we were there, but not in the area that's supported by this overhang. That remained fine. So it's a benefit to both properties. It's a benefit to us to have the overhang as close to the fence as it is because it provides better protection from wind, rain, and of course the overhang protects us from the sun as well.
So I'm going to turn to our county council here on the item. Can we accept that item as part of the record?
Yes, if Mr. Ennis would like to submit it as part of the record, he will need to provide copies to the zoning administrator.
I have only one copy.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
And I also have another copy, a photo that shows clearly how the uprights, the 4x4s of this overhang abut the fence and
Yeah,
support
if you'd
it.
like to bring those up
Sure.
here, we'll take those in as part of the record, and I'll take a look at that real quick. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. And so real quick, the trellis was there, it sounds like, when you moved in.
I'm sorry?
The trellis was there when you moved in.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And we moved in 1986.
Okay, wow, you've been there a
And it
long
was there
time.
prior to that, as far as I know.
Okay. So do you have anything else you want to, I don't think I have any questions for you right
Okay.
now. Any further questions? Do you have anything else for me?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, why don't you go ahead and take a seat?
Okay.
And this is a public hearing, and so I'm going to open the public hearing and see if there's anyone else in the room that wishes to provide comment on this item. Again, we have received a lot of written comment on it, but I just wanted to see if there's anyone in the room that wishes to speak to this item. Yeah, come up to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Leslie Dudora, and I just wanted to say that I'm here in support of accepting this variance. You know, I've also lived in the neighborhood more than 40 years, and it's always been a harmonious neighborhood until this time. And it's very sad to see someone incur the cost that it took to make sure this overhang was in good shape just a few months ago, made sure that everything was right, had it refurbished, and then to incur additional costs to have it taken down and perhaps create another one so that the same, or perhaps a percentage of the safety that this current overhang provides in terms of flooding by the back door. It just seems that this retaliatory effort on this one person's part is very unfortunate for a neighborhood that has been harmonious for over 40 years. Thank you for your time and your consideration today.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that wishes to provide comment on this item? Okay, and just because we do have a Tahoe convenience location, I have to ask, is there anyone in the Tahoe convenience location that wishes to provide comment on this item?
No comment.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for staff. I do have some thoughts on this, and did kind of some research investigation into sort of the historical code and building code and zoning code on this site, or in this neighborhood. So first, I want to just thank everyone for being here and for providing input, and for those that wrote letters. I appreciate folks being engaged in the process and providing testimony. And then I also want to just thank staff for their work and acknowledge the recommendation in the staff report. I have given this one a lot of thought. I've driven out to the site. As I said, I did some research on it, drove through the neighborhood. I also looked at Google images, I'll just say that, of the site and surroundings. I'm having a hard time talking today. I do just recognize that, this is kind of a hard one because it came up through as a code complaint about the trellis. But what is a challenge in my mind is that the trellis has been there for years, and we've got evidence of that with public testimony stating that it's been there for years, including testimony from the applicant, but also neighbors. And so that said, I just want to point out it's clear that there was no intentional violation or disregard for the code on behalf of the current property owner. So even though it's been filed as a code complaint and it came up to the zoning administrator as a code complaint, there is no evidence that this was an intentional violation or disregard of the code. So they did not construct the trellis. So in my review, I also kind of looked back to see what would have been allowed by code, back when it was constructed, and we don't know the exact time it was constructed, but I did find that the zoning code was different then, and so the setback was reduced, a little reduced than it is today, and that's normal. Code changes over time, and frequently you'll see setbacks get a little bit bigger, but it was a reduced code. And then the building codes were also different at that time. So what we don't know is what was allowed through the building permit. We don't have record of this. So it's hard to say whether or not at the time, perhaps they had some sort of authorization by somebody at the county to construct this. But while all that holds true, again, this is a request for a variance, and I have a responsibility to basically review the request and determine whether or not there are findings to support the request. So in doing that, I did some further look, and a couple things stood out. One is, in looking at the lot, in my opinion, there are several constraints on this site that would sort of limit where you could construct a trellis. It is a very small lot. It's about 20,000 square feet or so, which is really small, as are a lot of the lots in that older subdivision. And then it even has the yard itself in the rear is very small due to how the house is situated on the lot, and so. And it's kind of oddly shaped too with the placement of the house in the rear. It sort of gets a little bit more narrow towards the rear where the yard is located. So it really does, I think, limit where a trellis can be. And then there's also a tree and vegetation on one side of the yard, which further kind of would prohibit where folks could construct a trellis without removal of that vegetation if they were to construct it today. So I do believe the lot itself and the vegetation does provide justification for a variance if someone were to come in today to construct a new trellis. I also then looked at the surrounding neighborhood, and in this neighborhood, the old one, again, the lots are really small, and in looking at aerial imagery of the neighborhood, I found a lot of similar structures right up to the property line. So So that finding really means that, you know, the other neighbors in the in this area are enjoying the benefit of a similar type structure, pretty close to property lines. So I do think that the trellis in this location is consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and that is a finding that needs to be made. So I do believe there are findings to support this variance request. I also want to point out, you know, it's not a enclosed structure up next to the property line. It's a trellis, and as evidenced in the testimony, the applicants have maintained the trellis, and so it's accessible in order to maintain it and keep it in good care and condition. If it were a enclosed structure, I think consideration would be a little bit different, in my opinion. But I am comfortable tentatively approving the variance request. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take, again, I want to acknowledge staff's time on this and their position, but I am going to take action to tentatively approve the variance based upon my research and the testimony provided in the record and testimony here today, and really my comments and findings as I've expressed here today. And then we're going to continue this item to the February 19th zoning administrator hearing. And I'm going to ask staff to bring this back, summarizing my findings in support of the variance request, and then also attaching conditions of approval to it. So I think that's it. I also want to point out on the February 19th zoning administrator hearing, it will be continued to that date at 10 o'clock or anytime thereafter. So it could be anytime after 10. And I think that's it. I don't think I need to do anything else. Okay, so that concludes that item. I checked all the boxes there, and we will see you. Hopefully you're able to be here in February, and thank you for your time. Okay, I just need a few minutes before we go on to item number 4, so bear with me here, folks. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our 10:15 timed item. We're running a little bit behind. Sorry, folks, it's 10:39. Thanks for your patience. So this is item number 4 on the agenda. This is the Jonas Massel Demenci, I think, single-family dwelling side setback variance, PLN 25-00394. I just wanted to note real quick, looks like this one is up in the Colfax area. I have not seen any written public comment on this item, but I will let staff speak to that. I'm going to turn to them for a report on the item.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Staff requests the zoning administrator conduct a public hearing to consider the Jonas Maciel Dominici single-family dwelling side setback variance and take the following actions. Determine the project is categorically exempt from the environmental review in accordance with sections 15303 and 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Placer County Code section 183650, class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures, and section 183670, class 5, minor alterations and land use limitations, as well as approve a variance to allow for the construction of a 3,116 square foot single-family dwelling 10 feet from the south side property line where a 30-foot side setback is normally required, in accordance with Placer County Code Section 1760-100, subject to the recommended conditions of approval and findings. A little background. The 6.21 acre undeveloped subject parcel is located off of Poppy Way in unincorporated Colfax. The parcel is zoned RAB 100, which is a residential agriculture combining minimum building site of 100 square feet. Excuse me. The property is irregularly shaped and steeply sloped from west to east, with elevations approximately ranging from 1,988 feet to 2,170 feet above sea level. The site is heavily vegetated with trees typical in the foothill area, including oaks and pines. The northwest corner of the property where the site is accessed has a vehicle turnaround and a pad for building a home. The driveway access is a full turnaround loop that is 12 feet wide on the north side and 30 feet wide on the south side of that loop. A little analysis. Staff conducted a site visit on December 1st, 2025, and verified that the parcel has a flat area on the western portion of the property for the location of the house that is serviced by a full loop driveway. Staff also confirmed during the site visit that the parcel's topography is significantly sloped from west to east and heavily covered in a mix of oak and pine trees. While reviewing the proposed site plan, staff noted that the southern portion of the proposed driveway loop was wider than the standard 50 feet. Staff consulted with Placer Hills Fire about the design and if it could be reduced to fit the proposed house within the setbacks. Placer Hill Fires confirmed that the driveway width can't be reduced on the 30-foot southern side to fit the house due to the turning radius needed for fire trucks to navigate the driveway in case of an emergency. I need to read an errata into the record to correct condition of approval number 3. It will read as follows. With the building permit, the applicant shall construct an encroachment onto the private road Poppy Way per county detail ST 17. And on to my recommendation. In reviewing the materials presented in the variance application, the physical attributes of the project site, including limited building space due to emergency vehicle access, slope, vegetation, and irregular parcel shape, staff has determined that the findings required to grant a variance can be made and supports the request for the setback variance. Based on the analysis contained in this report, staff recommends that the zoning administrator take the following actions. 1. Determine that the project is categorically exempt from environmental review in accordance with sections 15303 and 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Placer County Code section 183650, which is Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures, and Section 183670, Class 5, minor alterations and land use limitations, because the proposed construction of a single-family dwelling is an exempt project under Class 3 and adjusting a setback is an exempt action under Class 5 that would not result in the creation of any new parcel, and there is no exception to this finding. Approve a variance to allow for the construction of a 3,116 square foot single-family dwelling 10 feet from the south side property line where a 30-foot side setback is normally required in accordance with Placer County Code Section 1760-100. Project subject to the conditions of approval and based on the findings contained within the staff report. This concludes my presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Just real quick on the errata that you mentioned, can I get a copy of that, please? Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to turn to environmental health and see if they have anything to add to the record.
Environmental Health supports staff's recommendation with no additional comments.
Great, thank you. And engineering and surveying.
Engineering and surveying supports staff's recommendation as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks to staff for that. I just wanted to actually read this. Okay, so it's a proposal to revise condition of approval number 3. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so with that, I'm going to now turn to, I don't think I have any questions for staff. It seems pretty, the outline in the report and the report you gave today is pretty straightforward, so thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to see if the applicant, owner, or representative is here, and if they are, to please come to the podium. State your name for the record.
Hello, this is Jessica Jonas Maciel. I'm the owner and applicant.
Good morning.
The property. Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to see if you had anything you wanted to add for me to consider.
A couple things. First, we have been designing this building for the last 3 years. We've had the property, and it actually shocked me to see that it said 3,000 square feet on paper. Our living space is only 1,500. So it's not a very big house, and we do have a lot of like large eaves and things to make it passive solar, but that is also one of our constraints, is really trying to create a much more efficient house and face it as close south as possible. And just the top of the property is very steep. The whole property is very steep, but that is the smallest portion and the only part that you can really build on. So it took us a lot. And also our neighbor offered to give us a piece of his property to create that setback, but because of his irregular shape, they wouldn't allow us to do a boundary line adjustment. So this was kind of our last resort.
Okay.
But everything else, they did a great job really representing our project. And
Okay, great. Can I ask you, did you get a copy of the conditions of approval?
yes,
Okay, and you're comfortable with the modification that was read into the record?
yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'll have you take a seat.
Thank you.
Yep. And because this is a public hearing, I'm going to open the hearing and see if there's anyone in the room that wishes to provide comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, I do have to ask, is there anyone in the Tahoe Convenience location that wishes to provide comment on this item?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I am going to first take action. First, I'll just note it is an odd-shaped property and very steep. So I do appreciate staff reaching out to the fire district for input. It is important that they're able to get on the property and serve the property. So I do appreciate that that outreach there. And I am going to take action to determine that the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And I am going to take action to approve the variance to allow for the construction of a 3,116 square foot single family dwelling, 10 feet from the south property line where a 30 foot is otherwise required. That approval is based upon the findings contained. So it's based upon the findings contained in staff's report. And then it is also subject to the conditions included in the staff report package attachment B, and as modified with the errata presented here today, which modifies condition of approval number 3, and it revises it. So again, the approval today is based upon the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report and is modified today and provided in the errata. So because we didn't have anybody that spoke at all or provided comment on this item, I can waive the appeal period. So the only person that would have the right to appeal is the applicant. And so you are good to go, and you can follow your plans and get moving on your project. And that concludes this item. Thank you for being here. Okay, and I need just a minute here to get my bearings before moving on to the next item. Did you pay? Okay, I'm going to move on now to item number 5 on the agenda. This is the 1020 item. It's the, let's see if I say this right, Navrotsky Pool House Rear Setback Variance, PLN 25-00125. I do want to point out we did get some comment on this. Kind of came in, well, it came in, looks like late last night. And I have reviewed that and hoping staff can speak to that. So that's the only one I see is one email that came in. And with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn to staff for a report on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Staff requests the zoning administrator conduct a public hearing to consider the Navrotsky Pool House rear setback variance and take the following actions. Determine the project is categorically exempt from the environmental review in accordance with sections 15.303 and 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Placer County Code sections 183650, Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures, and 183670, Class 5, minor alterations in land use limitations. Also, approve a variance to allow for the construction of a 1,283 square foot pool house with a 96 square foot attached covered porch and a 250 square foot attached patio, 10 feet from the rear property line where a 30-foot rear setback is normally required, in accordance with Placer County Code Section 1760-100 variance, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval and findings. Some background on the project. The 2-acre undeveloped subject parcel is located off of Cabot-Stallman Road in the unincorporated Granite Bay area. The parcel is zoned RABX, 4.6 acre minimum, which is residential agriculture, combining minimum parcel size of 4.6 acres. The subject property currently features a 1,908 square foot residence, a fenced in-ground pool, and a driveway providing access to the home, and a flat gravel pad in the southwest portion of the property for a future accessory dwelling unit. The current home is serviced by a septic system with a leach field and 100% repair area located on the northeastern portion of the property. The proposed ADU will be serviced by a second septic system with the leach field located near the western front property line and the repair area located near the southeastern side and rear property line. Onto my analysis. Staff conducted a site visit on October 29, 2025, to examine and photograph the site conditions. The proposed pool house is sited 10 feet from the rear property line, situated between the existing pool and the rear property line. It will require the removal of one 18-inch oak tree. Staff evaluated alternative locations to reduce the setback variance. However, any shift north would encroach in the mandatory 8-foot septic leach field setback or result in a deeper 6.5-foot rear setback request. The current proposal was determined to be the least impactful placement that maintains the integrity of the existing sewage disposal system. The future ADU septic areas verified by Lindblom Septic Design were included on the site plan and considered when reviewing the proposed variance. The county did receive one public comment letter from a neighbor indicating that there is a water line easement that crosses Mr. Navratsky's parcel where the proposed pool house is located. The easement did not come up during staff research of the parcel. Staff contacted PCWA and was informed that it's most likely a private easement. Staff also contacted the neighbor and was informed that they possess the easement records and are here in attendance today with those records. Moving on to my recommendation. In reviewing the materials presented in the variance application, the physical attributes of the project site, including limited building space due to the current and proposed septic system infrastructure, staff has determined that the findings required to grant a variance can be made and supports the requested setback variance. Based on the analysis contained in this report, staff recommends that the zoning administrator take the following actions. Determine that the project is categorically exempt from environmental review in accordance with sections 15303 and 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Placer County Code section 183650, Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures, and 183670, Class 5, minor alterations in land use limitations. And approve a variance to allow for the construction of a 1,283 square foot pool house with a 96 square foot attached covered porch and a 250 square foot attached patio, 10 feet from the rear property line where a 30-foot rear setback is normally required, in accordance with the Placer County Code section 1760-100 variance, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval and findings. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. I do, just real quick on the comment letter that came in about the canal. So real quick, we don't have any county record noting that there's an easement on this property for a water transport canal, that sort of thing.
Correct. During the initial analysis and research on the parcel, nothing came up, nothing on parcel maps. I worked with ESD yesterday to confirm, and we weren't able to find any county records of a water line easement on that property.
Okay. And you reached out to PCWA on that as well?
Correct. I talked to PCWA this morning, and he informed me that it's most likely a private easement, which is pretty common in that area. The area was very heavy with agriculture a long time ago, and so a lot of private easements were established as irrigation. And since then, the area has obviously been kind of cut up and turned into more residential uses, but a lot of those private easements still stand. PCWA doesn't maintain records of those. Once water basically comes from their canal and hits the meter, it's no longer in their kind of purview. He explained that if they did track all that, it would be a giant just spaghetti network of all these private easements all over the county. So
We don't have any record that the easement was recorded, legally recorded with the county?
not in the county, no.
Okay.
But the neighbor indicated that he has documents about the private easement, and that this came up previously on another property north of here, where there was conversations about his private easement. And he is here, so he should be able to touch on it.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to environmental health. Do you have anything to add to the record on this one?
Nothing to add. The property is pretty constrained with the septic areas. We also didn't have any record of this water line easement, so that is new to me as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And engineering and survey, anything to add to the record?
Nothing to add to the record, no, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and have the applicant, owner, or representative come up to the podium. If they're here, are they here? Yeah. Come on up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Benjamin Navratsky.
Hi there,
And
how
I'm
are
the
you?
owner and the applicant. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like you were aware of a private easement. It certainly wasn't recorded with the
So
county.
I wasn't aware of the easement when I obtained the property. I heard from the neighbor that there is a pipe that is going somewhere along my property. I wasn't sure where exactly, and I was not, for some reason, I wasn't aware or didn't realize that it would interfere. But if there is a pipe and there is an easement, I'm willing to work with it. I'm going to leave it, document it, move it if necessary at my own cost.
Okay. Do you have any questions of staff or anything to add, anything else to add?
No.
Okay. And then you've seen the conditions of approval?
Yes.
Okay, great. Why don't you go ahead and take a seat, and then I'm going to open it up and take some testimony. But if you wanted to come back up after, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up the public hearing and see if there's anyone in the room that wishes to provide testimony on this matter. And if so, come on up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Robert Hargrove, and I have the property directly to the south of Ben's property. And I do have the documents that show that I have an easement, dates back to 1920, the water rights, so we've had it all reviewed, and so I have a folder. But it's not a real problem now, because I talked to Ben before the meeting this morning, and he said he'd be more than happy to locate the line, move it out of the way along the fence line, and so, and he said he'd pay for it, so that satisfies my concerns this morning. So, that's all I really have to say, because I just don't want the water line being disrupted during the summer months where I don't have irrigation water, because it actually goes to 3 properties. So there's 3 neighbors that are impacted if the water gets compromised.
Okay. And so the easement was just a private.
No, it was issued to the Boardman Canal. So it goes from the Boardman Canal all the way across the old Frank Andrews property, across Cabot Stallman. And it goes to, originally it went to like 5 properties, but when they introduced San Juan water, the drinking water, many of the properties shut that off, and so they no longer have any water rights. But there's 3 owners that still have the water rights to, and I'm sure at one time Ben's property had water rights to it too, but when they got drinking water, they decided not to pay the extra cost, so they discontinued it. And so, but my line just cuts through the little of the corner of his property, but you can tell by looking at it visually that it's going to be pretty close to underneath that pool house. And so it just line needs to be moved along the fence line so it can be repaired when it leaks. So we do have to go on Frank Andrews' property every year to fix the leaks. And we had to go through litigation to get that clarified to the owner, and now we have full access because we've proved that we have the easement.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Did you have any materials? I know,
I'm happy to share it. Yeah.
yeah, if you want to bring, if you have copies that you want to us to have for the record, if you could bring that up
Okay.
here. If you don't have copies, we can go make copies. I think we can do that, yeah?
Okay, but there's a lot of documents, but that's fine.
Okay.
It's not going to be a big issue now that Ben says he'd be happy to
Okay.
move it. But anyway.
It's your choice.
Yeah,
It's your
okay.
choice. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna see if there's anyone else that wishes to provide testimony in this matter. Please come up to the podium and state your name for the record. Good morning. Hi there.
My name's Casper Warner, and I own the property. My property parallels his rear property line, which is where he wants to put the building, which would encroach on the easement on the entire length of his building, which is somewhere around 50 feet. On my side, it's a very picturesque area. We have a pond and we fish there and stuff, and we do that. And to have to look at a 50-foot long building 10 feet off the property line is very discouraging. Part of why we moved out there was because you have 4.5 acres in order to build a house. And anything else has to be 30 feet away from the fence, which is great. So he's putting an ADU close to the front. Now to add this 1,200 square foot pool house, we'll have to look at it. I'm not happy about it. And not only that, but as far as presenting us with this was happening and any notices they put out on the street, I drive that area, as does my wife, every day to commute. They were not noticeable. They were very small. We did notice one later on. It was right next to a mailbox, which you don't really notice. So my mailman didn't give me the information. No. Anyway, so the first notice we got was this paper that there's a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have much time to do anything. And not only that, but I met Ben a while back. I'm the neighbor that talked about the property line, about the water easement going through his line. The exact location does not really know, but we have a pretty good idea it goes underneath the proposed building. Part of my concern is that Ben has my phone number, and he plans on building this 50-foot thing on my view of from my property. It's just, I felt a little put out because we've had this time. He could have given me a phone call. I didn't get any notice. Again, the ones on the street were very inadequate. So we hadn't had much time to think about it or talk to anybody about it. And as far as what he was going to build with a plot plan did not become available to us until about a week ago. And it's a timer. This thing just beeped. It just kind of confused me.
Yeah, that's okay.
So,
we have some time. You can.
Anyhow, so all this time goes by, and so we talked with Ben, three of us, property owners around him, in there briefly about how we could resolve this. And one of the things was move the water line, so that might take care of that. We haven't gone too far to really consider how that's going to be done. Secondly, my part of it didn't come up as far as the visual of that, and what to do about that is a big issue for me. So if you grant that variance, it really imposes on the beauty of just sitting around not being encroached on a property line. I have 5 acres and a pond back there. It just really disrupts that a lot. So that has to be addressed. And because of the little amount of time that we were actually notified about this, none of that's been resolved, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to provide comment on this item? And if so, please come to the podium and state your name for the record. Okay, I think I'm gonna ask the applicant to come on back up here real quick.
Madam Administrator, just before we go back to the applicant, I would suggest asking if there's anyone commenting at the Tahoe.
And the Tahoe
Convenience
location. I forgot the Tahoe location. Is there anyone, we do have a Tahoe convenience location. Thank you for that. Is there anyone in Tahoe that wishes to provide comment on this item?
No comment.
Great, thank you for that. And hi. Okay, we have, go ahead and state your name for the record.
Benjamin Navratsky.
Hi. I just wanted to just bring you back up and see if you have it, if you want to respond to any of that, or and I actually have a question as well, but do you have any response to the testimony that was provided?
Yeah, so I think the water line is not an issue. I respect Mr. Renner's concern. I kind of didn't think it was an issue because there is nothing around the pool house for the next probably, I don't know, 150 to 100 feet. So it's not like it's encroaching or anything, but as far if it's a problem with the view, what I can offer is to plant some trees that would, you know, obscure that and would not be that visible from your property. Otherwise, I don't have anything to
Okay.
say.
So just real quick question. I mean, it's a big piece of property. It sounds like it is really constrained with the septic repair areas and such. Because it sounds like you have intentions to construct an ADU, and that needs its own septic area and repair area. So I understand that. But have you considered, in terms of the size of the unit, have you considered scaling it back a bit so that you could pull it further back to be able to meet the setback and be in conformance?
Yeah, I was, except I only have 20 feet to play with between the pool and the fence. And I have to have a setback from the pool, so that leaves me like with 10 feet. And so this area is the most practical place to build a pool house next to the pool. So that was my idea.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and take a seat. And I'm going to close the public hearing. I am actually going to, just based upon sort of new information that's been provided here today, I'm not comfortable taking action on this item. And so I am going to continue it. And I want to continue it so that staff can sort of coordinate with the neighbor and the applicant on the water line issue is my biggest concern here. And I appreciate that the applicant is willing to work with the neighbors to relocate that, but I need a little more information to know that that's going to happen. And so I would like staff to coordinate with them on that, locate the line. If it is there, right, A, and then B, if it is to be relocated, there needs to be something memorializing that in conditions. Additionally, I would like the applicant and staff to look at the property and to consider, is there room to shift this or scale it back? To pull it a little further away from the property line than is what is currently proposed. So I think in order to do that, you're going to need more time than a month, is my take. I'm going to look to planning real quick and see what your thoughts are on that. But I could continue it to February, but I'm thinking it might be better to go to March.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. So do we have a March date? Okay, so what I'm going to, March 12th. Okay, so I am going to take action then to continue the item. I would like the things that I expressed here today addressed before it comes back. It's continued to the March 12th Zoning Administrator Parcel Review Committee hearing, and it'll be 10 o'clock or any time thereafter. So that concludes this item. So I appreciate your input and I look forward to hearing more about this in March. Thank you for being here. Okay, and then that is the last item on our agenda. So it concludes the January 22nd, 2026 Zoning Administrator Parcel Review Committee hearing. Thank you for being here, everyone. And again, Happy New Year.